So, this is a separate video about Blue Protocol that I wanted to watch too because a couple of the mods watched it and said that it's very positive, and I feel like it might balance things out after the last video was really negative. So, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know. But other perspectives are always good. Watch both. Okay, let's watch the day one.
I just got done streaming roughly 10 hours of Blue Protocol's Japanese network test. And let me just preface this entire video by stating this game has not only lived up to my expectation of it, but it has also surpassed it. I played the first beta test that this game had. Admittedly, that beta test had a lot of issues. The combat was kind of clunky, the animations were kind of clunky. There was a stamina system present for your mount where you could only use it for a number of seconds. The stamina would deplete and then you couldn't use your mount anymore. There were so many aspects of the game that needed vastly improved, and after having spent 10 hours roughly in it today, I can say that a lot of the issues that I saw were present during that first beta test are no longer there.
Okay.
Now,
but what kind of issues besides like mount stuff? How many hours did he play before? So how many hours overall, I wondered, has he put in?
If you don't already,
up to this point,
I do and will be streaming this over on Twitch in roughly about an hour or so from when this video goes live. And I am hoping to get to content that most people haven't gotten to, that most content creators haven't gotten to, that I personally haven't gotten to. After 10 hours, I pushed further than I did over the 3 days that I spent in it the first beta test.
Okay,
now,
3 days.
Blue Protocol isn't your typical, your traditional MMO. Typically, MMOs are very linear, or then in cases of Black Desert, they're very open and freeing. But Blue Protocol, it provides a sense of being linear, but also at the same time gives you a level of freedom that you don't typically possess. And let me elaborate on this a little bit. Okay. So, as an example here, like the class system.
Okay.
Typically in MMOs, you have a class. That class is specific to your character. You learn your abilities. You, in rare instances, have a talent tree. In Blue Protocol, I decided to play mage. As a mage, I am limited to 4 different abilities. I have 2 Imagine. The Imagine are creatures that you can equip that essentially function like additional abilities or gear, since they provide you statistical benefits.
The
and you
summons?
capture them and you craft them and equip them in game. So I am limited to 4 abilities, 2 additional abilities
the summons.
that you can equip. You learn a set number of abilities, and then you have an entire talent tree. Now I opted to utilize the fire elemental tree. There are a number of different elemental affinities that...
But can you swap between different talent trees? Because he said that he's gone for fire, but is there like... Okay, my question is really, can you be every role on every job? So if you want to be a healing mage, can you do that? Or is there even a trinity in this game, in this MMO, where like tank, healer, DPS is all required? Or can you just like go all DPS all the time? Is there a need for tanks and healers? Can you be one on any job or any class? No? He explains further in the video. Okay. But if you pick fire, you won't be able to just swap easily to another spec like you can in WoW with like you can just swap your talents.
Mage has. You can opt for fire, you can opt for ice, you can opt for lightning.
Only ranger has heals right now?
I didn't play a lightning build. I didn't play an ice build. I felt like the ice was inferior to fire in terms of damage and in terms of AoE potential. I prefer grouping hordes of enemies together and then AoEing them. That's just how I like to play my games.
What's all these hearts?
Fire
What's that about?
allowed for me to do that. Fire gave me single target, gave me dot damage, and also gave me AoE pressure that I feel like the other elements just didn't. And I feel like being presented with the ability to play a class a certain way or a number of ways creates a degree of freedom that you don't typically find in MMOs. As an example, in Final Fantasy XIV, you play a black mage, and every black mage is going to play the same way. You'll have the exact same rotation. You have the same buffs. In Blue Protocol, that's not the case.
You might have spell speed.
You can choose 4 abilities out of 20, out of 30. So you're very limited in what you can do. You're very limited in your utility. If you choose.
But that's okay, because if you're tired of playing black mage, you can just swap to red mage. That's the beauty of having every job on one class. So it's kind of not a big deal if you can't swap your talents, or if mage is set the way that it is, because you can just easily play any other class at any time, which you can apparently do in this game too. You can swap jobs. Yeah. Okay. The problem with watching MMOs is that there's so much stuff on the screen and you can't understand what's going on. That's so true. There's so much information to parse out that you just won't even grasp right away.
Choose to focus on AoE, you're not going to be able to single target. If you focus on single target, you're not going to be able to AoE.
You said the benefit of FXCV is you can swap from anything to red mage. True.
You're very limited in your utility. If you choose to focus on AoE, you're not going to be able to single target. If you focus on single target, you're not going to be able to AoE.
What?
If you focus on a more of a control build, you're not going to be able to really deal much damage, but you're going to be able to CC enemies. You can focus on.
Why the fuck would you want to do that? Like, only be a controller and not be able to do a lot of damage or heal or tank, but just control only? What? I wouldn't see the appeal of that, of like doing shit damage, but you can like CC stuff. Is there PvP? Because that might make sense.
More of a support build and be of a larger support to your group.
Oh, the point is you can do that. It just depends on how hard in that you want to go. Okay. So you can't have your cake and eat it too, is what you're trying to say.
But not necessarily controlling enemies or dealing direct damage to them.
Okay.
So the game provides you these unique freedoms that a lot of other MMOs don't. And there are MMOs that do. I'm not saying
so you can be like a jack of all trades.
MMOs that don't already
Master
do that.
of none?
I'm saying typically of the MMOs that I have played, that is not a common recurring theme. Now, the game is definitely linear. There is a linear path where you move from point A to point B to point C, back to point A to complete what you set out to complete. And this is a repetitious cycle, but that's typically what MMOs are. So you have a sense of linear progression, and you also have that sense of freedom with regards to your class. But the world itself also has a level of freedom, in so that there are quest objectives.
With the whole point about level of freedom with your class, one thing I would say is I don't necessarily mind there being certain classes that you just play and they're good. Like the baseline build, like the way that the classes and all the spells that you have and the way that they work, it works. It just works. That's okay with me. Like a lot of jobs in FF14 are like that. They're just out of the box, they're good and they work. But a lot of times if there's a lot of customization with a class in an MMO, like I had this problem in Elder Scrolls Online where I built this really crazy tanky mage sorcerer character with plate, and I loved being able to build all of that out. But then when I got to endgame, people mostly just wanted a typical mage that uses a staff and has pets, because that's meta. But I didn't want that. You know, so like players will optimize, and then once the optimized builds are known, that's what most people are going to want in their party, because that's predictable and that's reliable. So in an MMO setting, I'm not always convinced that this level of customization for your job is a good idea, because some things will just be meta. So that's what players will want to pick.
Divs that you're forced to do to progress with the main story, or to progress with the side content in the game. Then there is the looting of all the shiny objects that are around, and there are a surplus of them, trust me. There are gems. There are plants, herbs, or there are various different categories. And the whole looting of all of the items is something you're going to be doing a lot of, trust me. Because okay, let me kind of veer off here into adventure rank, because I feel like this is integral to pretty much the rest of my thoughts on the game. Adventure rank in this game is essentially the gate with which you need to progress through if you want to continue making any kind of progress through the game.
It's just
At
like
level
Genshin?
6, I believe I hit a point where I could not take any more quests. This is because to progress any further, I needed to hit adventure rank level 2. Now, hitting adventure rank level 2 meant that I needed to unlock a number of different conditions. These conditions involve things like killing X amount of monsters, looting X amount of rocks out in the world, picking X amount of this specific flower.
Looks like Genshin's fishing
for X amount
system.
of fish. These are things that you can do while exploring. These are things that you can do while doing other quests, while killing other monsters, while fighting monsters in dungeons. Like, these
like
are things that you're
log?
going to need to fit into your everyday activities if you want to progress. And this is a 100% requirement. You cannot ignore your adventure rank, otherwise you won't learn new abilities, you won't unlock new story, you won't be capable of unlocking additional dungeons. You'll hit a wall. And this is a wall that cannot be overcome unless you, again, complete all of these prerequisite conditions. Admittedly,
that could be
the
tedious.
adventure rank can be annoying. I did find it to be a little bit frustrating because this was a Japanese beta, and therefore I didn't understand much of what was going on, and I could only translate so much accurately.
Does it mean like you have chores to do? Like you'll get a certain point where you need to do all your chores before you can go play?
So I was often left just kind of running around, hoping what I'm looting is what I needed to loot to unlock and further progress through all of the conditions that were necessary to unlock the adventure rank level 2. But backtracking a little.
So this doesn't sound like ridiculously positive like people have been saying.
The game.
Actually.
Linear,
the game, though.
While also offering a degree of freedom. Now, as I played the original beta, I noted at the beginning that there were a lot of issues that needed fixed, that needed remedied, because it dragged the game down and really made it feel cheap. That is not the case with this beta test. This beta test had a lot of revamped features, a lot of revamped functions, mechanics,
You mentioned that at the beginning.
and made for a very enjoyable experience. There's a lot of depth to this game. There's more depth to this game than I feel is typically present in other MMOs. There is the option to
I feel like he
play
was
any
about
class
to
you want to on a single character, and I know
I feel like he was about to call out another MMO, but he stopped himself. He's like, there's more depth in this game than other MMOs. We didn't say which one were you thinking though?
Eden Eternal did this. I know Final Fantasy XIV did this, but it's not something typically MMOs allow for. So you can level all the classes on one single character. There's the Imagine system where you craft Imagine, which are creatures that you can equip, use in battle to provide you additional abilities. Like as a mage, I equipped one that
her boobs are huge.
Heal me and heal other players that
his character's boob is enormous. Damn.
weren't even in my party out in the field, which gave me additional survivability, additional utility in a group.
Like, this is just it's like, I bet he put it on maximum size. Damn. It's a good thing that he didn't pick Archer, because she wouldn't be able to aim, man. She wouldn't be able to aim with all that.
Environment. You could also equip those purely for a
hard.
statistical advantage, because they give you an item level like
Starting to see why he likes
advantage
the game so much.
To enter dungeons. You are required to have a certain item level, and that can be boosted by equipping Imagine. So they function similarly to gear, while also providing a skill. So they fill a multitude of different roles. And then there are combat Imagine that you can use. So again, they fill a lot of roles. There are a lot of life skills, fishing. There is a very large focus on crafting.
Is there mounted combat? Can I run around on my fox and shoot stuff with a bow and arrow?
You need to go out, you need to farm items.
I would love to
craft your gear. And if you're not a crafter like I am, I hate crafting. It's going to be a bit of a nuisance to do, but at the same time,
you hate crafting.
You're not going to obtain gear necessarily from boss drops or world boss drops or dungeon boss drops. So I guess it is attempting to separate itself from that whole gear the whole necessity behind farming repetitiously for gear and then being disappointed when you don't obtain it.
I don't know about that, Chief. I haven't played it. I've only seen a couple of videos on it. You've played it more than I did, but if you hate crafting and you're worried about farming repetitiously for the items you need, I would be a little wary of the Blue Protocol.
Because there's nothing worse than trying to attempt to get this piece of gear from a very highly ranked competitive dungeon or raid, farming it for a month, 2 months, not getting the single piece you need, seeing everyone else get all the different gear that they wanted. The alternative here is that you enter these dungeons, you enter these raids, and you get materials. These materials are then used to craft gear that you wouldn't otherwise get, or that you're not going to get. So there's never a point where you're not receiving something beneficial for you or for your future gear. Thus, there's always a purpose behind what you're running, and you never feel disappointed necessarily in what you get. Unless, you know, you only need like one item left, and for whatever reason you're not obtaining it. But I feel like...
But if there's RNG in the drops, then you will, of course, be disappointed when you don't get that. Right? I don't see, like, basically right now, I'm forming my opinion about Blue Protocol. I will, of course, try it when it comes out, but right now I'm feeling pretty cautious because I also don't like a ton of unnecessary crafting. I don't mind grinding a little bit of crafting, but I don't know if I would play this game in a serious way. I think the biggest question on my mind right now is like, okay, how's the open world? Is combat itself fun? And can I just play casually and have fun and not try that hard, but still not get destroyed in the world? Or like what?
That should be a rare...
What kind of crap are they going to expect me to buy to have fun?
Rare case, given the amount of material, the amount of resources you get during and even after completing each dungeon. The world itself, absolutely beautiful.
How's the open world
for an anime game? I think Blue Protocol is the most stunning anime MMO I have ever seen. Is one of the better looking anime games in general. I know there are going to be Genshin players in here that are like, oh, but Genshin looks better. I don't think so. I actually think Blue Protocol, graphically for its regions, is equivalent to Genshin Impact, if not even better. I think the character models, the fluidity in the character animations are drastically superior to Genshin Impact. Drastically superior to any gacha game out there.
What?
You can see this during cutscenes with how characters move. Individual parts of their bodies, their fingers, their facial expressions, just how they move left to right and forwards and backwards and interacting with the environment, the seats, the counters. Everything is just so high quality. But then this is Bandai Namco. They're the people that...
I mean, art is subjective, okay? Everybody's gonna have their opinion about what they think looks the best. But let me just check Genshin for comparison. So I'm looking at the game, I'm looking at Blue Protocol. Okay, now let me just go into Genshin Impact really quick to take a look at the game. Holy shit. As night falls and fog starts to gather around the fireflies. Yeah, I mean, it could be better. Yeah, it really could be better, man. I don't know. Just kind of subpar. I have higher expectations.
They are the people that published Elden Ring. They have developed a ton of Tales of games, so they have a very long history with successful games. The combat is drastically superior to what I had played back during the previous beta test. The first beta was very clunky. This was so smooth. Everything just, it moved in unison. Running around, attacking, transitioning from attacking to your mount, transitioning from your mount to your attacks.
Oh, you can't mounted combat.
Grounded combat.
Oh, maybe.
Combat where you're jumping off a cliff and shooting enemies as you fall. The combat was phenomenal. Granted, the abilities were admittedly, for the first few hours, very plain, very ordinary, not very impactful, but that makes sense. We were only, I think, level 4 or 5 for the first 4 hours of the stream. We are also limited to a max level of 20, I believe, for this test phase, so we're not going to be able to see what abilities we get at level 30 or 40, whatever they end up making the cap ultimately end up. But the combat was absolutely phenomenal. It blew my expectations out of the water, having played it originally. I feel like for the first 10 hours of playing an MMO, and I played this in Japanese, so I spent a solid like hour and a half trying to translate everything on screen. But my first 10 hours spent in Blue Protocol, this new version of it.
Wait, is he in Japan? Yeah, because you're only the Japanese version people could play from Japan, right?
Finalized version of it were better than I thought they were going to be. My impressions were so far above. I did not anticipate to have as much fun as I did. Now, I'm not saying it will continue to be as fun. I'm not saying it won't grow to be even more fun as I continue to unlock new features.
Okay.
Like additional dungeons.
So it seems like he played the beta and it was bad a while ago for 3 days, and it was pretty rough. And then he played this again, and they fixed a lot of things. So I feel like maybe on his next time playing, he noticed all the things that were better and fixed, and ended up having a much better time because of that. I wonder if that skewed his opinion somewhat, and that in it feeling so much better than how shit it was, maybe it's like skewed his perception to feel like it's much better than it is like baseline. Do you know what I mean?
Like the raids I did, the dungeons of which were actually a lot of fun. There were interesting mechanics in the dungeons that I could utilize.
I think he got hyped
additional
by
damage
the
to monsters,
improvement.
additional damage to bosses. But I don't want to delve too deeply into this on day one, because my opinion of certain features and certain aspects of the game are likely going to change as I progress through it on day 2 and spend 20 hours in the game.
True.
They're likely going to change as I progress through on day 3 and cover 30 hours of the game.
Yeah,
so my opinion
I would check back after
10 hours of network test, beta test on day 1 is that if the game launches in this state, it is going to be a monumental success. It is going to cater to anime fans 100%, but beyond that, this game feels so smooth, feels so high quality. I can't wait for all of you to get to test this out, because this again exceeded my expectation. And if
it did exceed his expectation, because he played a much worse version of the game before.
Amazon don't ruin it, and they have the potential to, but they also have the potential not to. And if the monetization isn't ruined from Bandai Namco, if they don't make this pay to win or heavily pay to advance or heavily catering to whales, then I think this might be potentially one of the biggest releases of the year, and the only anime MMO that is left, that is relevant, and that is of any kind of success in the genre. Hopefully you guys join me on Twitch an hour from now, roughly, or if this video ended up being like 20 minutes long, 40 minutes from now, as we continue through day 2, as we continue to make additional progress. If not, I'll have another video of day 2 footage probably tomorrow, or alternatively, if Blue Protocol isn't your thing at all, absolutely no problem. I have 2 different videos on screen right now, one featuring a list of MMOs coming out this month, the other featuring a list, an MMO launching later this year that I definitely think you need to take a look at.
So he was really hyped for Blue Protocol in this video. It wasn't completely positive stuff from beginning to end. He did mention a couple things that even in this sort of hyped state, he seemed to be mildly concerned about. So like heavily pay to advance, some of the things becoming really tedious, the treadmill of loot, like all these things are things that are almost certainly going to be, but we don't know for sure. So I think he's probably going to do this for 3 days.
Just so.
I would skip the day 2 one and wait till after either the day 3 one or after that to see how he settles in with it after a couple of days, is like maybe hitting this wall that 1010 talked about in the previous video, and see what he really thinks after that. Because I think maybe sometimes, because this has happened to me too sometimes, man. Like it's happened to me where I am also an incredibly excitable person. I know this. Now, actually don't know if he is that, but I am definitely excitable. It doesn't take a lot to get me really hyped for something. But usually the hype will, after a day, then I, like, my real feelings about it, I understand. So usually if there's like, I never make a big purchase the day of. Usually we'll sleep on it. If there's something really expensive I want to buy, I know I have to wait a day at least because I'm way too excitable. And so I usually try to wait a little bit before I give honest opinions about things. Or lately I've just been trying to really dig deep and be more find good and bad, even if that's hard for me to see in the moment of excitement and of novelty and something being new to me, right? So I would wait it out a couple days and see how he feels.